All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Dance Studio Network podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Chatham, and joining me today is another lovely and talented person who I've got to know over these last few years. This is Miss Meara Patterson. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me today.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Yes. Well, this is the time. This is the time of a new season begins. It's like the opposite of spring. It's fall. Kids are going back to school. Everybody's trying to figure out their schedule. And we've got a lot ahead this year.
Yes. A lot ahead.
So before we do get into the much fun part of that this season's going to bring, we want to bring the audience back into your story where dance begins. I always love the origin story of every artist I meet. So walk me through it. Where did dance begin with you?
Right. Dance began at a very young age of like 3 or 4.
Okay.
My mom shoving me into a ballet class in a tutu and tights, and I hated it.
And
it was like one of those things where my mom was just trying to like figure out somewhere to waste some time, get some energy out, and it just wasn't my thing. And I actually only did it for a year. My mom made me see the season through, and I quit and I stopped dancing. And I went and tried some other things, softball, like did kid things, tried a little bit of everything. And then when I was about 8 years old, I was like, I think I want to go back to dance. And I met who was my teacher forever and ever after that, and she was like, have her come back and try it. And I tried it, and it like. That was when the spark went off. It was like 7 or 8, and I fell in love with it. And I did 1 year of just recreational dance, like did the recital, did the whole thing, and then the next year I was competing.
Wow. So what's great, though, is like kids are such little discoverers, and again, I this is our theme, is discover the artist within, and you just don't know when that spark's going to light up in a kid's life. But it's good that you experienced other things. It kind of narrowed down your search of what.
Right. Well, it gave my mom confidence that I loved what I was doing. And that trickled into the rest of my career, and still to this day, that it was never forced upon me. Like my mom was like, no, you're going to finish your season. We're going to see it to the end, but it was never forced upon me. And when I chose to go back, it was truly my choice. And then when I chose to compete and chose to start spending more hours in the studio, it was because I loved it, not because someone was like, you must.
Trying to vicariously live through you.
Yeah, that was never a thing.
No, I mean, and that's hard because, again, a lot as parents, we want to like give our kids what they need or what they want. Right. And there's always that fine balance of knowing like how the kid can advocate for themselves to share what they're ready for more. Because if your mom would have just shoved you in those early years and just, nope, like you're going to keep going,
right, that
could have ruined the journey for you.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Like I think seeing it now as on the teacher side of things is, yes, that is effective for a certain amount of time, but then they hit that middle school age where it's like, oh, there's cheerleading at school and volleyball, and then you burn them out.
Yeah.
and we lose those amazing years when like the body awareness clicks in and everything, and they've already quit by then because
they've done too much. Yeah. Well, and that's, again, sustainable artists are the ones that, continue to grow and thrive.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people, it's like competitiveness has taken over a lot of industries. And so people push so quickly. And so like the early years, if you're telling me like, hey, you weren't quite sure at first. I mean, you were, what, 4?
So I was a baby.
You're not behind. So walk us through kind of at 8 years old, what was the first dance classes that kind of turned on that spark for you?
Really, I just came into my own as a performer. I have always been dramatic, and I have lots of stories.
You dramatic? That. No way. No, I'm just kidding.
But I came into, like, I did not have stage fright. I loved the stage. I loved creating characters for these dances. And so it started off really minimal, like at gymnastics and tap and jazz, and that was about it. Like, it was a very minimal class load, and then came into competition.
When did you start dancing competition? Because if you got started at 8.
I was probably 9.
9. Oh, so you just kind of like.
Oh yeah. Once I went back,
you
into
went
dance,
head over heels for it.
Yes. I mean, I was in 1 year of recreation, and
then jumped in.
Yes, and at the studio I was at, you got like invited. It was a letter. It was such a big deal.
I love it.
But yes, from 9 on, it was like hit the ground running.
Okay.
I was in love with it. Took every style.
So tell them the classes you were taking.
So probably at 9, it was probably still minimal, like 1 jazz, 1 ballet, 1 tap, 1 hip hop. I was at the studio every day. I took one of everything. Gymnastics, lyrical, contemporary, and then all of my team practices. It wasn't till I was probably 12 or 13, and it was like a flip switched, and I was obsessed. And side note, my grandparents always took us grandchildren on a trip when we turned 13. We were a teenager, and I picked New York. And I went and saw a Broadway show, And
you were sold after that.
And I come from a family of singers, and they're like, oh my gosh, the lead, she was amazing. And I was like, did you see the girl in the back corner with the ponytail? And I was watching the dancers the whole time. And I came fascinated with these background dancers, and they're not really background, they're on Broadway. They're amazing. But you know, from an untrained eye, they're watching the front. Who's in the front? What's happening? And I was watching these dancers, and I told my mom, I was like, I'm going to move here and I'm going to do that. And my mom was like, okay.
At 13?
At 13. And at 13, I came home, and that was really when I started seeking training more than just my requirement. So I started tumbling. I started taking ballet classes at other studios, and I came from a very small town, so there was a lot of opportunities for a small town, but you had to kind of find those opportunities. You had to look for them.
Well, and it's neat because, you know, that adolescent years are so crucial to finding, again, the right balance of passion, commitment, and hard work, because so many times, like, people just want to be there overnight.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Like, I'm 9 and I want to be the most advanced I've ever been. And you're like, you just got started. Like, this takes years to develop, not just like the cognitive, but like the technique, the stamina, the strength. There's so much. So much. So like really it's about 4 years, even after you started, you know, getting more serious about it, before that next level.
Absolutely.
Kind of took over. Okay.
Yeah. You look at my solo from when I was 9 years old, and you're like, whoa. That girl tried to dance professionally. What? But it does take time, and I hear it from a lot of dancers now. Well, I didn't start dancing till I was 12. Like, I got behind the curve, and it's like, whoa, that's not true at all. What are you talking about?
Yeah, because it's not age.
It is not age.
It's maturity. It's
maturity, and it's the desire to actually want to put in the effort. Like,
ooh, say that again.
Yeah,
that's a golden nugget right there. Say it again.
No, it's the maturity, but it's the desire to want to put in the effort, because there's a lot of girls that I've seen come into dance 12, 13, 14, but they love it, and they train their hearts out, and they practice at home, and they put in the effort, and they'll surpass kids who've been dancing since they were 5. Yeah. And it's not to say they had better training or anything like that. It is truly the desire.
Comes down to that desire.
Yes.
No, because no one can actually dance for you. You know, your teachers can train you, your parents can support you, but when you hit that stage or hit that dance floor, it's up to you.
Absolutely. When I got into middle school, I think is when I noticed that my parents definitely encouraged me to like love what I did.
Yeah.
And I had a brother, and his was the same way. Like, love your sport, work hard at your sport, you know, practice as much as you can. But it was my choice. If I wanted to do more routines, that was great. Well, then I needed to put in the effort. And there were certain things that I had to do to demonstrate. Deserve to be able to do more. But yeah, falling into high school, like that's kind of just what I loved.
Yeah.
There was no pressure to do it. I mean, there was pressure for myself. I'm a competitive being.
No, totally. I get it.
I want to be the best, but there was not necessarily outside pressure to be the best.
Well, it's really fascinating because I've read so much studies on like child behavior and development. And one of the key factors they actually measure for success in a child is whether they felt safe in the environment they grew up in.
Yeah.
So what's really amazing is if a kid can feel safe in their studio with the teachers, with the support from family, from the whole, you know, everybody's partnering together to help you, that's actually going to be more crucial to developing a strong mind, not just a strong body. Because, you know, we've seen it all the time. People collapse under pressure, people get overworked and overburn out. And this is something we absolutely have said as a studio, like we will not have and we will not tolerate, because as a child, there's no reason for you to be burnt out. You're not carrying like a mortgage. You're not like carrying car insurance and bills. Like, your passion should be expanding, not shrinking.
Right.
And I think the flaw is pushing kids too quickly before what the kid is ready for. And then.
Right. And it's also something that coincides with that is the pressure to do it.
Yeah.
Like, there's a pressure to dance, to compete a solo, to be the best, to win these trophies, to where kids are more anxious coming off of the stage than they were going on.
Wow. Well, and it's kind of like a splinter effect. I've talked about this a few times. Like, you can kind of grow up either through like kind of this faith and inspiration and encouragement, or a lot of kids have suffered through the systems of dance over, you know, generationally speaking, through fear and intimidation of not being good enough, or, you know, exactly what their director wanted from them on stage, and they're in kind of that fear.
Right.
And that's not a healthy way to grow a child. It's
No.
like, hey, you're gonna either win or you're gonna learn. But
100%.
both versions of that grow you as a person,
Right.
and you shouldn't be in fear when you hit the stage or coming off. So,
well, and I think it's because the dance world is very guilty of this, but I think in all aspects of life, it's guilty of this. Is there's this image of like there's only one kind of success, and you know, at this competitive level of their ages, it's winning first place.
Yeah.
You know, when you go to college, it's dancing on a D1 team. When you move on, it's being in a music theater or being on Broadway or whatever that might be. But that's so unbelievably not true, because there are so many things to look as successful. Like kids who have stage fright, and we just get them on the stage. Like that is me jumping up and down in the wings being like, we were successful today. Who cares what that overall thing? And I always relate it back, and this is a great time to do it, to the Olympics.
Yeah.
People will always make jokes of like, when is dance going to be in the Olympics? And I'm like, never.
Yeah.
It is a subjective sport.
Oh, I know. This drives me crazy.
Yes.
Because you can't compare it like baseball.
No, there's not rules.
Yeah, like you don't have like a score, or like you can just like lose the whole time and then come back and win at the end.
Right.
It's like if you're being judged from a competitive, you're being marked down for every single mistake. This is nothing that you can recover from.
Right.
And to your point, we had a dance one year, and this poor girl, I mean, they worked really hard as a team, and she just slipped, fell out of her number, and it was like you could hear the gasp.
Yeah.
And cost them, didn't place at all. And what I loved, what happened next was I watched as the girls rallied around her, loved on her. I mean, she's crying backstage because she felt so bad. She let the team down. Not one kid was like mean-spirited towards her. They all like gave her hugs and supported her. The director was like, it's okay. Like, this is
It's part of it.
And what's amazing is that at the very next competition, they won first. That group won first overall.
But it's
and I was
because, again, she probably felt, and we had a similar situation happen this year on one of my teams. It's the anxiety that you feel when you come off of the stage. And she probably felt the weight of the world on her shoulders.
So
and
much.
to when they met her and said, it's okay. Like, we're humans and this is going to happen to every single one of us at some point in time.
Yeah.
To feel secure not only in yourself, but in your team, you're always going to perform better.
Well, yeah, it's that chemistry.
Yes.
And that trust.
It's feeling safe.
And there you go.
Because as an artist, you have to feel safe. Like, there is so much of dance that is scary.
And you're taking creative risk.
Yes.
So unlike a lot of things that are like, I do exactly the structure of everything that I've been shown to do in a lot of different types of sports and things, like you're emulating musicality through artistry and motion, and you're working together, and it's just, it's a different kind of symphony.
100%.
So I think it's really important that people understand, like, you got to balance what your kid is ready for, not you as the parent trying to push them ahead of that race. Right. And that's the biggest mistake I see parents make.
It's the biggest mistake I see them make in any aspect. School, dance. And, and I haven't gotten to that phase of life yet, but experiencing a lot of kids' stories, which has been such a blessing in my life, is let your kids decide the pace. Yeah. And the road. If you try to pick the road for them, they may not want to go down it. Then if you're kicking them down it every which way, there's going to come a point in time where they have a voice loud enough to say, I don't want to do this. And then you're going to be throwing your hands up in the air.
So disappointed,
So disappointed and not understanding where you went wrong.
Yeah. Well, and it's a grave mistake that happens frequently. And this is what we strive to make sure will never happen. And, our dancers, whether you grow or go on to other things, we want you to leave inspired. Did you find that artistry? Did you discover that passion? Right. Did you find who you were in this studio and build confidence? Because we've then elevated your mind, and we've left a fingerprint on you to be successful no matter where or what you do. Right. And that's the goal, right? Like, to serve children and to make them into, what'd you say? Not just great dancers, but great people.
Great people.
It is such a perfect statement. And I think, the more you immerse yourself in this industry, it's like you learn how it ebbs and flows, and it's like, stop fighting against the current. Like, let your kid go through a season. If it's like, hey, this year mentally they're expanding and their mind is trying to catch up with all the new things they're trying to learn, then maybe one season you see like their technique and turns and everything takes a jump. And then one season maybe you see all that combined, and now they're like, they didn't even look like they're not looking at the stage as to like, where do I dance? They're just embodying that full approach.
Absolutely.
But to your parents, I want to touch back on your mom. Tell us what it was like kind of as a middle school, going in high school with your mom. Like how was your dynamic?
My mom was like the epitome of a dance mom. She wanted to make all the costumes. She was always at the studio. She taught some of our baby ballet classes. Like she was always there. But we had a great relationship when it came to dance, again, because she let me set the pace. Now, when I said I wanted to go for it, and at 13 turned and looked at her and said, I'm moving to New York one day and I'm going to do this, she didn't hold back. She said, okay, but this, and this is what you have to do.
Yeah.
And this is what we expect you for us to continue to provide this. You know, there was always expectations in the sense of I'm going to deserve what I got because, you know, I was 13. I wasn't working. I wasn't paying for dance, you know.
Send me to New York, Mom. Yeah.
So there was expectations set on me. But I would tell you the difference in how my parents approached me, both my mom and my dad, was not did you win? It was did you do your best?
Yeah.
And I started, again, competing at a young age. I had my, you know, victories of winning first a lot. And I had my times of I didn't place in the top 10. And I would cry about it and be mad and, you know, say all the things I wanted to say in the car. But we always had a rule, you know, we didn't talk about it at the venue.
Oh, please. Okay, hold on. Please. This thing has to change, like as an industry, because you see people come off stage and they're like right into corrective measure. And I've tried to say this just within our network of studios, like let the event be the event.
Yes.
Corrections and adjustments are at the studio. We can divert our attention to that. We're here to perform and enjoy what this weekend has to give.
Right.
And pause till we see you on Monday, and then we'll get back to.
You know, we had a strict rule with my mom and I, like, because I was an emotional kid. Told you I was dramatic from very early age, but there was a rule that no matter what the outcome was, whether I won first or whether I didn't place or whether, you know, was 10th overall or whatever it was, we didn't talk about it at the venue, including first place.
Wow.
Like, we could be excited, we could jump up and down, we could take a picture, but then we let it rest because someone else didn't win. Ooh. And so there was no reason to parade around the hallway, you know, screaming and cheering and doing this over dramatic thing. So we were allowed to be excited. You were allowed to be upset, but you were going to save those emotions until we exited the door. Normally, once we got in the car,
then it's
because then, you know, even when you have the days that you lose, because it is inevitably going to happen.
What you mean you're going to lose in life? No way.
Going to happen to everyone. You know, you can. My mom is my safe space, and I can say whatever I want. So out of pocket.
Yeah.
So untrue. Whatever it is, say it to my mom. But again, when I got home and let's say I didn't place, it was never a you didn't place. Like, we're so disappointed in you. It was you didn't place. Did you do something? Because there's something you could have done? Nope. You did your best. Okay, then we go to bed and we let it until the next weekend. You know, there's this taking this like life or deathness out of these competitions, because at the end of the day, they're subjective and they're just for fun.
Yeah, it's remarkable that the pressure for that outcome supersedes the entire experience, because it's the whole journey in the studio.
Well, and for whatever reason, the dance world has elevated it to a completely different level.
Yeah, than where it was.
Yeah. It used to be, you know, and dance moms alike will laugh at this. It used to be like bronze, silver, gold. Yeah. Like that was the placement. We know a lot about it. Now it's like triple, diamond, platinum, like, and all of these crazy words. And like, but it's like we're always trying to outdo ourselves instead of saying like we are just going to judge ourselves off of what we did today.
Yeah.
And that's
I like that. You know, and that is healthy. And I think, you know, the takeaway is communicate the expectations between as a parent and a student, and create that safe conversation to continue.
Well, creating the conversation, and we heard this actually, I will give credit. It was a owner of a dance competition who did this little spiel. And you know, when they start talking at the awards and you're like, come on, like, this is going to be forever. But this was one of those moments that it was a good moment. And she said, please remind your kids, your dancers, every time. If one judge were to change, if the order of the dances were to change, if the day was going to change, the time of day, if anything were to change, all of these outcomes would change. Ooh. This is not set in stone. This is not, you know, this is not the end of the world. It is subjective, and there are so many factors of why things fall the way they are. So we're going to leave this day at this day. We're not going to take it to the next day. Oh,
that's good. Well, let's pause there. Yeah, that's a good one. So if you're listening and you're trying to assess how do you process your kid's success, it comes back to, it's kind of the age old, like, take it one day at a time.
100%.
Yeah. And that's the healthy mindset that's going to keep you in it.
Yeah. Same with a winner.
Oh.
One day at a time.
Oh, I love it. Well, chew on that for a little bit, and let's wrap up today, and then let's jump back into part 2. I want to talk a little bit more about life in New York. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay. Well, thank you, Meara. Wow, there it is. Thank you again for joining the DSN Network podcast. We've been chatting with Ms. Meara, and until next week, let's dive right back in. We'll see you then.